Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent LaBrada and a very special guest that Brent will be announcing in just a second. But first, I do want to let you guys know that you can find us on all major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all by searching Dog Trainers Podcast. That's all one word, at Dog Trainers Podcast, as well as all major podcast platforms. I want to give a couple quick shout outs to people that have been showing us love for the podcast here. What's up to Salt Lake, Utah, Centennial, Colorado, Calgary, Alberta in Canada, and Brisbane, Queensland. That's a new one. Thanks so much for the support, guys. And with that, over to you, man.
What's up, everybody? It's Brent with the Dog Trainers Podcast. And as Mariano mentioned, we have an amazing guest today. Some of you guys may know him. Some of you guys may not know him. But if you guys are on Instagram and you guys search dog trainers, this guy's face pops up all the time. He is the creator of Kalm Canine Training out in New York. He is also the host of Not Just Dogs podcast. Sorry. And you can find him at Kalm Canine Training. It's Kalm with a K, K-A-L-M, K9, the letter K, the number 9, and the word training. On Instagram, it's Nachum Russell, aka Russ. What's up, man? How are you doing today?
What's up, guys? I'm excited to be here.
Thank you
for
so much.
Coming, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, for everyone listening, it's interesting because, you know, going on the internet, it's very saturated with dog trainers, but very rarely do we run into dog trainers who are doing anything other than just like posting cute pictures of dogs or, you know, sharing some inspirational quotes here and there, right? But every now and then we come across certain personalities of people who, you know, are training dogs. They are learning things, you know, about their own lives. They're inspiring people. And then they're also working on inspiring others through social media content. Right. And I think I've come across with you, you know, I've seen conversations like, you know, just when you're on the internet, you go, oh, this person follows that person. Oh, this person also follows that person. And then I just kept coming back to Russ. And so listening to your podcast, man, I just kind of was listening to what you were doing. And I noticed he's like, hey, you're doing kind of what we're doing, but you're talking to dog trainers. You're talking to having real conversations, connecting about the craft. Like you're understanding, like you're creating kind of this web and network of cooperation and just talking dog training. I guess what was ultimately your inspiration for starting your podcast?
So I wanted to have my own podcast for a while since before I was even training dogs, I was like, I want to have a podcast. I didn't know what it was going to be, but from when I started getting into listening to podcasts, I was like, this is an awesome way of doing things, of communicating, of networking, of building something. I don't know what, but I just think it's an awesome idea that it exists now. And then obviously when I got into dog training and started my business full time, I was like, I should do a dog training podcast. Mm-hmm. I had never listened to anyone else's dog training podcast, so I didn't know what people were doing with it and how it was being done. But I figured the best way to do it is to kind of mimic the podcast that I enjoyed to listen to, which is having a fun, long form conversation and just getting to know people and hopefully somehow through that inspiring people who are going to listen to it. I never really had in mind that anyone was going to listen to it. Right. So it's pretty cool that people do. And I started it in the beginning of when COVID started. I was like,
nice. It was like a byproduct of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I shut down business for about a month or two, like everybody. And I was obviously a bit bored. As well as a rule for myself is that no matter what's going on in my life, I'm always creating content. So whether I have dogs or not, whether I'm working or not, there's always social media is always active. There's always content going up. And I was trying to figure out what content can I be creating now when I have no dogs to work. I have my own dogs and there's only so many times I can repeat that you should put structure into your dog's life.
Right.
So I was chatting with a friend, a trainer out in Chicago, I believe, Illinois. I think she's in Chicago. And I was just like, hey, let's do a live together and you'll be the first on my new podcast. And it was very casual. I didn't really have anything big in mind. I was like, we're just going to do it. And I've done, I think, 36 of them since then. So it's been pretty cool.
That's amazing, man. And,
awesome, man.
And going kind of through the table of contents, like you've had some pretty big names. on there. You mind sharing with the audience a couple of people that you're excited that you got to interview?
Yeah. So I had some of the quote unquote big names, but to be honest, although that's cool, what's most exciting to me is actually that I get to have people on that other people wouldn't know about if
And
not.
that's what I was gonna say next. Yeah, that's
Because to me,
really
that's
awesome.
so so I never really spoke about this publicly, but why not? A
Mhm.
big part of what's important to me through my podcast is to tear down this idea that we have to have certain people on a pedestal in the industry, because I think it's important that we all learn from each other.
Right.
So I have no issue with one week having somebody who's been training dogs for 10, 20 years, and then the next week having somebody on who's literally been doing it professionally for 6 months, because we all can learn from each other. We all need each other. And it's important that we break down that pedestal a little bit that some people have been put on, because I just think it's an unhealthy way to build an industry and to make this a better community. Ultimately, it should be a community, not an industry.
That's an interesting point. And that I think is something that dog training lacks as a whole. I feel like there aren't that many dog trainers that are willing to collaborate. And I'm sure that you're aware in the new age, it's a little bit different. But back in the day, dog trainers were guarded with their secrets and they wouldn't really want to explain how they would do their stuff. And it's nice to see that that's kind of falling away now. But even though people are a bit more open these days, they don't always seem 100% willing to collaborate. So here's a question for you, and I'll just give you a tiny bit of context for it first. Some of these bigger dog trainers, like we're talking about, I want to say
More well known, more well known.
more well known.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. More well known online. Jeff Gilman, Sean O'Shea, Tommy Davis, Michael Ellis. I may be Tyler Muto, but I don't want to be wrong. So, but definitely those other four, all of them who are very popular online, and you would think, because they're aware of this and because they're successful because of this and everything, would be kind of prepped for this. Yet every single one of them, when we reached out to them, were iffy about coming on, because they were like, man, honestly, sometimes I get so much negativity and hate on like YouTube and stuff. It makes me weary about going onto someone else's platform. Have you ever felt that way?
Of me going onto someone else's platform?
Yeah.
I've only done one other podcast before that wasn't mine.
Okay. Well, let me rephrase the question then. Have you ever been so like, you ever just get tired of it, of the bullshit, YouTube trainers and people telling you how to do your stuff?
But I kind of am past it. Not that it never bothers me. Obviously, I'm a person. Things are going to bother me. Shit's going to suck sometimes. But like,
right.
I think that I try to focus a lot on what's my goal. My goal isn't to make everyone happy. My goal is not to make everyone love me, because I'll be trying my whole life. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, my goal is to help people and to inspire people, and whether it's through dog training or through something else that I'm going to share. And if I can do that goal by going on someone else's platform, by making myself slightly uncomfortable or whatever it is, then to me, it's worth it. Like, I have a bigger goal in mind than just getting some likes and views. I have a goal of inspiring people, of building community, of helping dog owners. And to me, that's what I try to focus on. And the more I focus on that, the easier it is to let the bullshit fall to the side and just keep going towards that. Does it bother me sometimes? Of course, but in general, I've gotten pretty good at just separating myself.
Block the bullshit. Just block the bullshit.
Yeah.
You develop that thick skin.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
It's important in any industry, and it's important especially in ours, where there's a lot of animosity towards people, and people want things to be done their way. And I think it's even more important, if you're going to put yourself out there, you got to be ready for people to say shit. It's that simple.
True. No, that's 100% true. Well, just like every other guest that we get on, we want to kind of get a little bit of the background, a little bit of the story, because, listening, game respects game. And so listening to like several episodes of your podcast, as long as you keep doing what you're doing, like, I feel very confident that you're going to make a huge difference in the dog training industry. Right. I would love to have that exclusive interview with, with Russ. They'd be like, yeah, we were there. I want to just know your history, your background, like how you got into this stuff, what inspired you. And I made this joke with Natalie Dobkins on the last episode, where I was just like, it would be crazy if we just had origin stories of trainers, like not just like I worked with dogs and then this and then that and then this and then that. It like the real inciting moment in your life that, whether you knew at the moment or didn't know until later, would make you want to be a dog trainer, right? Like mine was when I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like it goes far back, you know? So anyways, I thought that'd be a funny topic. That doesn't necessarily be what you
It's
have
like
to talk
Batman's
about.
origin story.
Yeah. It's when he's met the bat when he was 10 years old.
If you ask every trainer that comes on your show this question and get it, you could create a segment on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what,
that's what I'm thinking. Like, that's what I want to do, is just have that. But so maybe we start with you, Russ. let's go.
I think it would be dope. I would watch that.
Yeah.
How did I get into this? So I did not grow up with dogs at all. I grew up in a family of 8. So my mom's rule for pets was if it can't be flushed down the toilet when it dies, you can't have it. So we had fish and we had frogs and we had turtles, but no furry animals. I would play with my neighbor's dogs when I wanted to be around dogs and walk there. So those were the first dogs I ever walked, is when I was very young, my neighbor's dogs.
Nice.
And then when I was, I guess, 19 or 20, I got my first dog, Marley. Anyone who follows my Instagram will know Marley. He's always there.
Nice.
And
what kind of dog is Marley?
Marley's a Rottie mix.
Oh.
Like a Rottie hound. I never did one of those DNA tests, but I was told Rottie hound. Has the face of, he has like the coloring of a Rottie, but he's tall and lanky like a hound of some sort. He's a good looking dog. And I got him at about 3 months old from a shelter and had no idea what I was getting myself into. All I knew is I wanted a dog. My friend who was with me kept showing me pictures of full-size Rotties and being like, he's going to be huge. And I was like, yeah, well, I need a big dog. I'm not a little dog person. And I brought him home and loved him a lot, did all of that stuff, but didn't really know what training was. I had no idea that there was a dog training industry. I had no idea that there was a daycare industry. I didn't know that there was anything based around dogs. I knew that there were vets. That was about it. Shelters and vets.
Okay.
So I brought him home and I did everything as best as I could. Made a ton of mistakes. By the time he was 6 months old, he was super reactive, started to become aggressive towards dogs, reactive towards people. I wouldn't say aggressive towards people, but definitely tried to bite them. I know that sounds like he's aggressive, but there's a difference. More reactive, right? And cost me a shit ton of money on things that he ate in the house.
Oh no.
Shoes, glasses, my passport, cash.
Oh my.
Everything. Like, he's lucky I love him.
He's lucky he's cute, you know?
Yeah. And I started to I had to figure something out. I had my mind made up that I wasn't going to get rid of this dog, but I also knew that I couldn't live like this anymore. It was complete craziness. So I started down the journey of trying to figure out different ways of training dogs, and started going down that path. At the same time, prior to working with dogs, my last job that I had before I was all in with dogs was I worked in a group home with developmentally disabled adults. And then I no longer had that job. I decided I was going to party the whole summer till I was broke and then figure out what I was going to do with my life.
Love that.
So I did that, went to a lot of music festivals, had fun, partied, got broke, and needed a job. And the last thing that I was supposed to do was I was going to Europe for like 2 weeks, and I needed a place to board my dog. And I found this place fairly local to me, about 15 to 20 minutes away. And I went in to meet them and got the tour of the place and all that stuff, and booked to have my dog board there, Marley. And while I was there, I was like, kind of casually, I was like, hey, can I get a job here? Like, this would be really cool, you know, like hang out with dogs all day. So the manager of the place was like, he thought I was just like another random like young kid, like, hey, I want to work here, this is going to be cool. So he's like, yeah, when you come back from your trip, you could ask for an application. So when I came back to pick up Marley, I was like, so I need the application so I can start working here.
Yeah, bottom line, that's gonna happen. Yeah.
So I started working there, and I fell in love with it, but at the same time I hated it because it wasn't a place that used any sort of balanced approach or anything like that. So I wasn't full in on balance training. I didn't know the words balance training at all, for that matter. I didn't know about tools at that point. I was still trying to figure things out with Marley, but I knew that I didn't like going home with a headache from barking. And when I walked in there, the way it was set up was it was in like a warehouse type place. So it was this massive space with a gate in between. So there was 2 play areas, one for smaller dogs, one for bigger dogs, or higher energy, lower energy. And that's what it was. And when I walked in, they said, "Are you scared of big dogs?" I was like, "No, Marley's my dog. I'm not scared of big dogs." So they said, "All right, here's a spray bottle, like a spray water bottle, and go into the big dog area and hang out there with the other staff. And your job is to make sure that there's no fights, that the dogs don't play too wild, and to try to keep it as quiet as you could. But obviously quiet was the last thing that mattered." I went in with this spray bottle, and anyone who has ever tried to use a spray bottle on a dog to stop it from doing behaviors knows that with most dogs, it's not going to do much.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes they like it. They're like,
I was going to say, sometimes they're just like,
The dogs were running around playing, and I'd spray water at them, and they're like, "Woohoo!" So, so I had to figure out a way. I didn't want to leave the job. I loved it. I loved being with the dogs. I loved walking them. It was just something different than what I've ever done before in my life. Never thought that I would have a job doing that. It was very different than anything I envisioned I would be doing. But I also needed to figure something out. So I didn't know at this point, I still wasn't like going on YouTube and Googling dog training stuff much. It was just like here and there, I'd watch a video. Obviously I watched a ton of Cesar Millan,
right?
But
especially when you're in a daycare, you need to know a lot of Cesar Millan. Actually.
So as much as like Cesar's show is a show, at the same time, you could pick up on some things from there.
Body language.
And if you want to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was watching a ton of that, and I started to trial and error, try to figure different things out to get these dogs to chill. I figured out without using any tools how to control a nice big pack of dogs, like anywhere from 20 to 40 dogs, and to build rapport with them, get their respect, using a lot of spatial pressure, some physical touch. Breathing actually is an important part of it, because keeping my energy really at a neutral state. And I learned how to very quickly take a dog, like big group of dogs that was crazy and wild, to a calm state where they'd all be walking and following me. And at that point I was like, this is amazing. Like this is a feeling that I've never had before in my life. It feels absolutely, it's like I couldn't explain what it felt like. It was a beautiful feeling. It was really, really cool. And I had all these dogs just starting to respect me. So I was like, I gotta get more into this, whatever this thing is that I just found.
It's like you opened up a whole new realm. Like you're just like, whoa, dude. It's like finding magic all of a sudden. You're just
absolutely.
Like, what? It
was a wild feeling. It took a while till I actually got there. It wasn't like, but it was as I discovered like what's possible. It was a wild feeling. It was very cool. I used to walk in, the dogs would be loud and barking and all over, and I'd walk into the gate, and within a minute or two, the whole energy in the whole space would be different. And it was a beautiful thing. It was very cool. So then I was like, this is really awesome. I know I want to work with dogs. And I was like, I think I want to figure out like their behavior. Like there must be, I still didn't know that dog training was actually a thing. There must be like a demand for something like this. And I knew at this point, obviously I knew dog training existed, because like I was watching Cesar Millan, and I knew he couldn't be the only one. Right. And so I worked a lot there, and I got a ton of experience, working with dogs and working with the business and working with clients and all of the important stuff, really. All this was still going on, and I was on my journey with Marley. So I slowly started to introduce him to a prong collar. I learned about e-collars. I learned about what structure actually meant, and started to change up a lot of my life with Marley. It was a very long journey, but we're progressing a lot. And eventually I was like, I want to become a dog trainer. And I thought that the only way to do it was by going to school. So there was a dog trainer in New York City. His name is Anthony Giron. Probably nobody's ever heard of him, because he's an older man who was a dog handler and trainer in Vietnam War. And came back and started training dogs in New York, and eventually training people to become trainers. And he's a really awesome dude. I would love to have him on my podcast, but he's so old school that he doesn't know what that even means. So Anthony Giron, I went to his school for dog training, which I didn't learn much dog training wise there that I didn't know, but the experience was awesome. And I learned a lot of other important dog stuff. and I got to go for a weekend of taking some bites, like decoy work.
Nice.
A lot of fun. So I had a great experience there. I love Anthony. I have a ton of respect for him. That's why I'm saying his name out loud. I want everyone to know about him, even though no one will ever know him. But he's an awesome guy, and I owe a lot to him. So, and then after that, I started training professionally in the facility there where I worked. At that point, they obviously started to see that I had something. I could do something. So they started to give me more leeway to use prong collars with dogs, which they were okay with. They just weren't like pushing it. They were okay with it.
Right.
Okay.
The facility's dog wore a prong collar, and some dogs would come with prong collars, some wouldn't. But I started to make that more of the way in that place slowly. At this point, I was also the manager of the facility, so I had more respect. I built a rapport with them and showed them that I'm capable of doing something with dogs. Right.
Right.
So I started training dogs there, and eventually doing a lot of one-on-ones there with people, doing board and trains in the facility, doing group classes. I did a lot of e-collar work there. I was the one who brought e-collar work to the facility. So it was cool. I got a lot of awesome experience there. And then I went to, in the summer of 2018, I believe, I went to, Jeff Gelman was coming to the facility there to do a seminar.
Nice.
So, he had come a couple of times. The first time he came, he was doing a seminar for local rescue, just only for them and their staff. I didn't like him.
Oh yeah.
we're friends. Don't worry. He knows.
Yeah.
And then I also didn't really know anything about training then. So I was just like, this doesn't make sense what he's saying. I was like, I didn't get it. Right. But then the second time he came back, I had already been like consuming a lot of dog training content and working a lot of dogs that like it all started to make more sense to me. And then he came back in June of 2018 and I hung out with him a lot and helped him with a seminar and ended up signing up for T3 like a day later. And I went to T3. And when I came back from T3, I quit at the facility the next day.
You're like, I'm going to start my own company.
And started my own business.
I love that.
Yeah, that's basically it. And then this has been its own journey of itself, but that's how I got here basically.